we're going to have Daniel Jackson and Elliot Ridgway, who are going to be talking about how to ship your games into Steam. And let's give it to them.
And we were talking about the assets that you need for your store. So this includes everything from game screenshots to the capsule images that make up the store page. And what I was saying, I think we were talking about how it's good to have like one piece of art for your game that you can just kind of reformat. So like something where it shows off like the characters and like the logo and stuff like that for the capsules.
For the capsule. Actually, I was doing, you do want something like a silhouette that shows exactly what your game is going to be. Like if you're a crafting game, you want a hammer or something like that.
Yeah.
My recommendation now that I never heard of this, I was watching other people explain like how they set up their Steam pages. You want to make a clickable logo or capsule. And that means, so the easiest way to test that is have like 5 capsules made, and then whatever someone would click on, that's what you should pick for your capsule. But that was outside of what we talked about. That was just, because we were doing this research and all of that, I looked into stuff deeper.
Yeah, that's a good point. Something else that is good to keep in mind is for the trailer that shows off your gameplay, you want to get to the gameplay as soon as possible, within the first 5 seconds at the maximum.
Just avoid all the logos. If you're like contractually obligated to do something, just avoid the logos, go straight for it.
Right, because everybody, the first thing people want to know about your game is what does it look like, how does it play, that kind of thing, and you want to get them that information as soon as possible. So yeah, I think I was going to do this one. So once you've got your store page kind of situated, the next thing you're going to do is concentrate on actually getting your game on Steam. So this is the upload process of getting your game from your computer to the Steam servers. The first thing you're going to want to do is download the Steamworks SDK. And this is a package of applications that help you actually do that upload process. So if you're kind of a programmer type, you might want to use the command line version of Steamworks, where you just type in commands in a little terminal window and it'll do the upload process. There's also a GUI version of Steamworks that we're going to go over here in a little bit that will help you get your game files up on Steam. There's 2 important concepts to go over at this point. So when you're uploading your game to Steam, you're going to be working with builds and depots. So kind of the difference between the two is, I'm going to start with depots because I think that's kind of the more natural starting place. So depots you can think of as like the buckets on Steam where your game is going to go into, and this bucket will have all of your game files. So any the binary of your game, like a launcher application, whatever the player is going to download when they buy your game, this will go in the depot. But then on top of that, you've got builds. And so builds describe the different versions of your game. So like after you've initially released your game, for example, you're probably, players are going to find bugs, or that you might want to add a feature after the initial release. So to achieve this, you would create a new build of your game that would go into the same depot, but it is a new build that is distinct and different from the original build of your game. Every Steam game has its own unique app ID to identify it, and so this is especially useful for the scripts that we're going to go over here in a second that will tell Steam, hey, I'm trying to upload this unique game that has this unique ID that refers to your game. So this is kind of the, this is a script that the Steamworks SDK uses to upload your game. A lot of this stuff you're not going to need to change, but I would draw your attention to line 3 in this script where it says app ID, and it has the number 1000 after it. You're going to replace that with the ID of your game. And then also towards the this would be for things like if you have DLC for your game, or if you are including a soundtrack or something like that. That would be when you would have additional depots to go with the game. And then this is a separate script that you're going to modify that has to do with updating the depot. So the first one was kind of had to do with specifying your app and what depots it's linked to. This is a second script that you'll update that actually configures the depot itself. The depot ID on line 4, that is a variation of your app ID. So Daniel mentioned that there are 9 depot slots for a given app. So what they do basically is they'll take like the last digit of your app ID and just increment it. So it'll typically be 0, and then your depot ID will have.
Your app ID is always 0, I think. And then,
is it?
Well, your first depot.
is 1, right.
And then your other depot.
So 0 through 9, basically.
Majority of the time, you're only going to use the one depot.
Right, unless you're doing something fancy with DLC or something like that. And a lot of this stuff in this script as well can also be left as is. The main thing that you will want to pay attention to is the depot path on line 13. That would be where your game files actually reside on your machine. So if they happen to be in the same directory as the scripts, then the period is just saying, hey, get the game files from this directory. But if they're somewhere else on your system, you would put the file path to your game files on that line.
So this is the GUI version of all of that that allows you to update your stuff. So where it says depot ID and build path and all of that, none of that is going to show up on here because this is a cleared one and that's stuff you don't want announced to other people. Basically what you'll do is you'll log in here. You'll have to use your two-factor authentication again. That's why I say that. And then you'll want to find where the SDK is on your disk and then put that in there. And then you want your app ID so that it knows exactly what you're going for and all that. You can't upload it to someone else's if you can't log in and stuff. So this is 1.9, right?
I think you want to do it?
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
it was. Yeah. Okay, so submitting your game is its own project. Submitting your store page is also its own project. And then the third one is the actual release of your game. So we can't show what it looks like inside, so we just have to describe it to you. So there's 3 boxes, and then the first one is your store page, and you're going to launch that. And it comes with its own checklist. That's what Elliot was talking about with like the assets and stuff. Once that's done, then you can release your store page. Get that up as soon as possible because people can then wishlist your game or at least just look at the trailer or look at your stuff and get that ball rolling. Once you submit your game, they go through a series of tests and make sure, hey, does this game work? You know, it's not full of viruses, anything like that. Then you finally have the release window, number 3, once you go through all that. Chances are you're going to fail something because usually majority of the time, like I uploaded my wrong screenshots. You have to be a certain aspect ratio. I accidentally uploaded the originals and I left my aspect ratio, the correct aspect ratio ones on the folder, and I realized I had screwed up. So Steam's going to give you feedback. It doesn't mean your game sucks or anything like that. It's just you want to make sure they're aware of it. And then once your builds are up, then you can start test downloading, meaning you can be like, hey, I'm going to go to this computer over here, log in, and download it from the Steam client and make sure it works. And then I think we're going Steam Keys is the next one, right?
Yeah. One other thing to mention on this slide is you should plan for about somewhere between 2 to 5 business days between when you submit your game to Steam to have them review it before you'll actually be able to release it.
Release that, and your Steam page will also take so many days. And I don't think you can do them at the same time. Like you can't just be like, here, review the page and the Steam game. It's like once you do the page, then you can do the game.
Yeah. So it's like an actual human has to look through it and make sure everything is okay. So that's why there's a little bit of a delay. So just something to keep in mind if you are planning to release your game on a certain date. Know that you got to work backwards a little bit from how long it's going to take Steam to approve it.
Yeah. There's actually been, you can go to the next page, but there's been issues where people were like, all right, guys, we're releasing on this day, and then they failed something. They're like, just kidding. We'll tell you when it's going to release next, so we have to run into issues. We kind of tag team this one, don't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk Curator Connect?
Yeah, you go for it.
So now we're kind of in the marketing phase of Steam games. We've got the game uploaded to Steamworks, and we've got the store page ready to go. So now we're going to kind of move into how do you market your game. So there are these people on Steam known as curators that have this status of they will review your game for free and post reviews of it to kind of help generate buzz about the game. Typically, they're expecting to receive at least 1 key to the game to get it for free so that they can review it and then give you feedback. You want to be a little bit wary of curators because there are a lot of bad actors out there that will just take your key and run, especially if they're asking for multiple keys. So if you get an email, and you will get emails after your game comes out to say, hey, I need 10 keys to review your game. Those people are just they're people that are trying to scam you, and you should not give them keys. Do you want to talk about Keymailer?
Yeah, so Keymailer is another third-party service that you have to pay for that works similar to it. But you can actually, and then Wovid is the other one, say there's a streamer you like and they're approved and you pay the premium price, you can just offer that streamer, hey, do you want a key or whatever. So that it also goes into your people streaming your game and like the big Twitch streamer streams your game, you're not getting sales. I know that sounds awful. But it allows it to get out there, and then there's video of it. And then you kind of have that cycle of like, hey, let me, you made this video of me, and let me put it on the page, like, hey, this person was playing. And Keymailer is an easy way to do that. Also, any of those people that are like, hey, give me
Yeah.
Okay, so marketing and visibility rounds. Say you've just uploaded your game, and you've released it, and it's out there, and everyone's playing it, everyone loves it. Steam is giving you a visibility round where it starts going through the algorithm and showing to people that they think will actually buy your game. But you get 5 additional ones after your launch. Everyone gets a launch, and then you can use up to 5. And so the idea is, say you updated the languages on your game, and all of a sudden you're available in different countries, right? You can say, hey, that's available now, and then do a visibility round, and because you've just added those new people, it'll start doing that for you. And then you've done a festival, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, so Steam every year does this thing called Next Fest, which is kind of like a virtual convention for Steam games that are coming out. And the idea is to, you get on Next Fest, I think there's like an approval process you have to go through, but you basically say, hey, my game is coming out, it gets included as part of Next Fest. You get to have your own slot for demoing the game to people and talking to people who are potentially interested in buying your game. And that one is done annually, I believe. But there's a bunch of other sale festivals that Steam does throughout the year. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Steam Summer Sale. There's also the Winter Sale, the Autumn Sale, and then the Lunar New Year Sale. I think those are the big ones.
Yeah, it's 4 big ones.
And then there's also some other smaller ones like the Halloween sale. But those are things to watch out for as well. So you'll want to make sure that you put your game on sale at least during those big sales, if nothing else.
And then community, you can go to the next one. Community updates are, say you just update the game in general and you're not doing one of those visibility rounds, people will see that your game is active and not some dead game, that the devs are actually still working on it, there's things going on. Even if it's just like, hey, we did some minor bug fixes. Like example, Half-Life 2 was part of the launch of Steam, and they updated it last week and put in the community notes like, hey, we're still uploading this game, and that was, 17 years ago? Mm-hmm. So yeah, you want to put that sort of stuff in there. So keys. There are Steam keys. Do you guys know what Steam keys are? Okay, so you can request keys, but there are multiple types that you can request. The first one is a dev key, and it'll show up in red on there. So say I'm working on a game with Elliot, I can be like, hey, let me give you a dev key for this so that you can look at all the builds, everything like that, and be able to mess with the game. But then there's press keys, which is only the retail version, but you can get it early, meaning it won't be, because you'll have different versions of the game in there and stuff like that you can do. Usually people keep it just as one. And then the press ones would be like, say you had a bunch of Kickstarter backers or anything like that. You can give that out to them and they can play the game early. And then retail keys are anything after the game is released, just like here's a key, just here's just the plain ones.
So these are some things that are nice to have for your game that go sort of above and beyond the core game itself. And depending on who you ask, some people would say this is sort of expected and required for Steam games. So Steam achievements, this is basically just where you're playing through a game, and I'm sure you've all seen this if you've played Steam games. Basically, you do some kind of notable achievement within the game, and then the little gray box pops up in the bottom right corner to say, hey, you got this achievement on Steam, and it shows up in your Steam profile. Most modern game engines have Steam integration, so GameMaker and Unreal and Unity, I think all have this, to give you the ability to actually tell the Steam servers, hey, the player just got this achievement, go update their Steam profile. Cloud saves is another good one to have, so this is basically just saying when your player saves the game and then they shut the game down and they go play it on someone else's computer, their save file is still available through the Steam servers. And then controller support, this is a good one to have, so just to make sure that you're, it kind of depends on the type of game that you're playing. Not all games are appropriate for controllers, but for those that are, games like side scrollers or RPGs or things like that, it's another nice thing to have because it shows up on your Steam store page. That's along with all the other facts about it. It'll say, oh, this game is compatible with a gamepad. So that's another good one to have just to kind of broaden your reach for the game.
All right, so I'm the Unreal person, so I gotta. If you're trying to get your game on Unreal, using Unreal, you want to go to this website right here. This is already outdated because Unreal Engine 5 is out, so they're going to have new information. But here's the big deal. So in Unreal, it gives you a thing called prerequisites. So if you install the game on someone's computer, if I just give you a copy, you have to have those prerequisites in order to play the game. Well, by default, Unreal adds those so that you can play the game, right? Well, Steam doesn't like that because you could be giving a virus or something like that. It kind of goes outside of their little area. So you want to make sure those are all marked on false, and then inside of Steam, you have to tell them which one of those prerequisites you want. And it's like Visual Studio 2022 or whatever now, and something else. And so
on the GameMaker side of things, this is how you integrate your GameMaker game with Steam. So it used to be that you got this for free as part of GameMaker, but they recently re-architected how this works. And so now you have to go out and get an additional plugin for GameMaker that activates the Steamworks support. And so it doesn't cost anything, but you just have to go get it from the GameMaker store. I don't really want to go through all the details of how you set this up because it's slightly involved. I mean, it'll only take you 10 minutes to set this up, but essentially it comes with a PDF, and you'll just want to make sure that you read through that to make sure that you run all the right scripts and get your copy of GameMaker set up to communicate with Steam. Some of the functions that are listed on here, these are things that you can call from within your GameMaker code to communicate with Steam. So Steam init, this would get called at the beginning of your game to make that initial contact with the Steam servers. And then Steam update would get called on every step of your game just to make sure that communication stays up with Steam. Set achievement and get achievement, these both do exactly what it sounds like. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where something happens in your game and then at a certain point you decide, okay, well I want to contact Steam now and say, hey, the player just got this achievement, go update their list of achievements. And then file write and file read, this corresponds to the cloud saves that I was talking about earlier. So this would allow you to take your save file and then save it off to the Steam servers. And then when they're ready to load the game later, you would use Steam file read instead of Steam file write.
So this is a really big one, localization. How many of you guys have ever localized a game before? Okay, you have. So you guys understand the importance. So like, down here in South America, that's where all of my sales came from. I have like maybe 10% came from America, not even. And so you want to make sure your game is localized and ready for anyone that's a potential Steam user, because they're all new markets that you can get your games to. And you want to make sure that as many people as possible can actually purchase the game and enjoy it and stuff like that. And so I highly recommend localizing. And you can see how many, there are a bunch of people in America, but there's these kind of green numbers, that's millions of people there that are potential buyers.
It's also good to think about this pretty early on in the development of your game. So I'm currently going through the painful process of combing over all my code and trying to find every string piece of text and changing it to an internationalized version of that string. So it's good to take care of that up front if you know that you're going to localize it. Most modern game engines can help you out with this and make it pretty painless, but better to do it earlier rather than later.
All right. So now we're in like the weird stage of stuff that it doesn't really deserve its own slide, but there are thousands of Steam features. So the first one is stats. That's like any information that can exist in your game. You can make a stat of it, and then based on those, then you can put leaderboards together. So you can have like, hey, here's the top 100 players, and then put that on the Steam page and stuff like that. And then there's Workshop, which neither of us have done in Workshop, but it's this whole world that exists that people can upload stuff and have their own system for organizing things or modding your game or hacking your game, stuff like that. And for some games, it's almost required to have that. And then
Space War 480, this doesn't have anything to do with the previous 3 bullets, but we just thought this was a fun little Easter egg to throw in. So if any of you are up on your video game history, Space War is one of the first video games that came out in 1962. Steam has it set up so that if your game is not yet released and you are actively developing your game and you're communicating with the Steam servers, it'll say in your Steam client that you are playing Space War. And if you see anybody else out there, like on Discord or whatever, and it says that they're playing Space War, then you know that they're a Steam developer working on their game. So that's just a little fun fact.
You want me to take this one?
I can do this one. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but once your base game is out there, there's a lot of stuff you can do to kind of prop it up and provide additional content for the game. DLC, this is just, would be like additional levels, additional bosses, something like that would tack on to your original game, but would be a separate purchase. And this kind of gets back to what we were talking about with having multiple depots for the same app. If you made DLC for your game, this would go into a separate depot, and it could. So that would achieve is it would allow you to download the DLC separately from the original game, or you could download them together if they're in a bundle or something like that. Same thing for the soundtrack. So I would highly recommend doing a soundtrack for your game on Steam, because most likely after you finish the game, you'll have all of your music files still kind of lying around with the rest of your game files, and so pretty much all you got to do is just package that up and do a zip or something like that and put it on Steam, and so now you've got an additional revenue stream of people buying the soundtrack in addition to buying the original game. Demos, these are really good as well to have for your game. So most of the clicks that you get on your store page are going to be people who just kind of look at it and then just move on. Most of those eyeballs are not going to actually buy your game. So a demo is a great way to get it into people's hands because everybody likes free stuff. And it's actually kind of amazing just the difference between how many free demo downloads you'll get versus how many purchases you'll get. It's like an order of magnitude greater. So it's a great way to get a sample of your game out to people so they can try it out and see if they like it and wish list it and stuff like that. And then all of this kind of wraps up into bundles. So once you've done all of these additional pieces of content for your game, you will want to consider doing a bundle for your game. Steam makes this stupid easy to do. You basically just have to hit a few buttons and it'll package all of your different depots together into a bundle so people could get like the base game and the DLC and the soundtrack and get it all together in one purchase, maybe for a reduced price, 10% or something like that. And then patching, this is just kind of a heads up that yes, you will probably need to patch your game after it comes out because players are going to find bugs that you didn't anticipate. Steamworks makes it really easy to patch your game. So basically all you've got to do is go in and modify your game files, make a new build of the game, and then you're going to run it through Steamworks SDK again, either using the command line tool or the GUI. And then Steam is actually great in this regard. Once you've pushed it through a second time and you've made a new build of the game, it's actually going to diff your game files so that players don't actually have to download the entire game again. It'll actually figure out which bytes have changed and just download that to people's machines for them. So you don't have to mess with any of that. All you got to do is send Steam the new game files and then they take care of the rest.
Okay, so getting paid on Steam. Usually it's based on whatever day you signed up your account. That's when they'll do it. Instead of being like, all right, it's the first month, everyone's getting paid. It's like there's so many millions of transactions going through, and they have a bunch of others. So it's usually whatever day you signed up, that's when you'll be getting paid. Want to be weary of their sites like G2A, like, I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of it. Basically, like, you can put a key on there and then sell that key, which sounds great, but then those people that like got free copies of your game, then all of a sudden they'll go and be like, oh, let me go sell that game. And then they're getting money and you're not getting anything. So you want to be careful of those sort of places. But then there's the opposite of that are places like Fanatical that and Humble Bundle that allow you to sell so many keys in bulk, and then they distribute them in bundles with other games and stuff like that. And then at any point you can do your own sale. So yeah, there's the summer sale and stuff like that. But if you want to be like, hey, you know what? In 2 weeks I want to put the game on sale because I want more revenue. You can go ahead and do that, and it's super easy.
I actually just recently did this for my first Steam game, The Idiot's Tale, because it's just sitting there not doing anything. I was like, I'll put this on sale, and just by doing that, like I didn't have to do anything except create the sale, and I got 15 additional purchases of the game by doing that. Do you want to talk about the long tail? Or?
Yeah. Okay, so there is everyone's like, oh, our game, it sucked at launch or whatever, we can't do that. You're going to make way more money as long as you keep at it and like keep updating it and stuff like that. Every year I sell double of what I did the first year because, putting it on your own sale. the big thing that happens is anyone that wishlists the game, they get an email and they're like, hey, you know, that game you want, that's on sale. Whenever it does like the huge sales, it's like, hey, you know these 200 games on your wish list, they're on sale, and yours is kind of lost in the mix. So you kind of get this pattern going like that. And it sounds weird, but you're not actually trying to always get sales, you're trying to always get wish lists. Because it's like a spiral down, because you have people that, they're going to buy the game when it first comes out, or they'll buy it as soon as they find it, and it's full price because that's what they want, that's the kind of game they want. Then you have the people that, they'll buy it at 20% off, then 25, and so on. And so you want to stair step down your game over time, and then keep putting it on sale at random times. And it generates a bunch of cash. So, well, a bunch of, you hope it's a bunch of cash.
Right, and so the reason that that's called the long tail is just that you sort of have this mental image of your game first comes out and it's a huge amount of sales at the beginning and then it trails off. In reality, most of your sales are going to be in that long tail after the initial launch. So.
All right, so Elliot has a gift for some of you.
Yes, just as a thank you for getting all the way through our talk, I actually brought some of my own Steam keys if you want to try out some of my games. These will also be demoed tomorrow in the exhibition hall, but just as a thank you for coming, if anyone is interested, I've got Steam keys here. So I guess by show of hands, does anybody want Steam keys? Okay, everybody. So here, you can take the mic if you want to do questions.
I'll do questions. I will have my keys tomorrow. I packed them with all the other stuff that we're presenting and everything and left it in a box with everything else. And this is also not, Steam related, but if anyone has an Xbox, we have Xbox tokens for the game that we released. That's also a CSGC winner. So who has questions about making a game or putting your game on Steam? Or did we answer everything and you're like, I'm going to go do it today? Yeah? Has anyone put a game on Steam before? You guys said you'd localize, but have you put a...
Started the process, but didn't quite get there.
Okay. Nice. Right on. You're Chris, right? Never mind then. You're not who I'm thinking of. Okay, yeah. So what games you guys made mobile? So what happened to the launch to Steam? What went wrong?
Unfortunately, the company got laid off. The team was laid off.
Okay.
Yeah.
My condolences.
He's not a teacher, and I'm looking.
Nice. They might be hiring here if you're looking for a job. So, is anyone actually like, I want to make games and be indie game and like go through that? Like you were who wanted to hear this sort of talk? So you guys, okay. So what are your guys' current plans to sell games then? Or well, hold on. What's your current plan to finish your game? Don't worry about selling it. What's your plan to finish the game? If I know that's a super. Does anyone want to answer that? No. Feedback? Okay, so how many of you guys are showing your game that you have sort of finished off tomorrow? You are. Where's yours? You are? You just don't? Okay. Okay, so my recommendation for tomorrow is find any little kids and let them play it, because they don't have the filter. Because like if I go up and play your game and be like, oh, I'm so glad you're working on this game. This is going to be great. Anyone under the age of 10, that's who you're looking for to just tear it apart. So
They'll find bugs that you never even thought of.
Oh my God, yeah.
They'll break your game, which is what you want.
Yeah. In hindsight, what you should do, I know it's way too late. I mean, it might not be. You might get a webcam and then put that in front and record that while people are playing, and then the gameplay, and then just review the footage later and be like, oh, this is what was going on here. And you can look at bugs and stuff of like how they actually did stuff. I also don't recommend testing normally at these things. Test differently. I mean, really, you can find free people, right? Like, I'll play your game and test it for you, if that helps. So who else is, do I need to wrap? Yeah. So
Your backlog is empty.
So your game, it doesn't matter when your game is ready to get on Steam. It matters when your store page is ready. Mm-hmm. You want to get that store page up now. So if you have sort of concept art, sort of anything that's, then your store page isn't ready. But if you have something that's like, yeah, this is what it's going to look like, kind of, get those as soon as possible and get some sort of page up there and approved, because then you can update and be like, hey, you know, we changed the characters and now it looks way better. And then you can build up those wish lists and things like that. So it's not really about when your game is ready, it's about when your store page is ready. I'm assuming you have something to say.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to comment that, you know, early access is a thing, and so like, you know, the game doesn't necessarily have to be feature complete to put it out on Steam. You could say, hey, I'm doing early access, or hey, this game is in pre-alpha and I'm looking for feedback on it. And this is, you know, particularly useful if you're doing a game like, I don't know, like No Man's Sky, or just, you know, some online game where you want to load test it with players. Like that's another reason why you might want to do that. I mean, doing like early access has its own, you know, kind of pros and cons. So that's, you know, just it's another avenue. If you like you really want to get the game out there and let people play it, even though it's not necessarily done, you can just say it's early access, and that's another route you could take.
Also, the dev keys that you can request, you can request dev keys and just pass those out to people that are going to try it out, and then no one can see it. And then if you want to, you can be mean and like take away the key or whatever, I think, but I wouldn't do that.
Is there a too early, like, yeah, you're out? Is that too early?
So, okay, so the too early would be prototype. Like if you have, like you can play the game to beginning to end and you have some form of art in there, then you're good. But if you don't have at least one level vertical slice like this is done, then you're probably too early to release on early access. Also, if you're going to release on early access, you can't promise anything anymore. Because it used to be like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and like Steam is like, nope, you take all of that out, you say every feature that's in the game right now, and you can put on your wish list of things you want to do, but you have to put a disclaimer that these things are not going to be in the final game. You run the risk of that. Like what you're buying now is the end game, and you take that risk.
It's also probably worth exploring the demo route if you're really wanting to get the game out there in front of people. You don't necessarily have to say it's early access. You can just say here's a demo of the game. So for example, one of the games that I'm working on that's not finished yet, MonCon, is out on Steam, but it's just a free demo that you can download. So the full game is still being worked on, and it'll be done someday. But right now you can go out there and get the demo and play it and see what the game is all about, even though you haven't bought it yet.
And then another, do you guys know what a vertical slice is? Okay, so it seems like most people do. I didn't years ago. So it's one complete level that would look like all of the art, everything. Like you can ship that one level as your demo, that vertical slice. That's what you want as a demo. But early access, you have a bit more leeway because they expect things not to be done and stuff like that. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Come to conferences to. The best marketing for Steam is releasing your game and having a game available, because then they know exactly what they're buying. There's no second guess or anything like that. You can sit there and run Facebook and Twitter campaigns and stuff like that. Great, but until the game's out, it doesn't really matter. At least, I mean, I'm going to be proven wrong. Well, this game did this, because all of the games have done something different. But I would say you can do stuff, but I wouldn't do anything paid before your game is that way. When I say paid online ads, I would go to conferences like this and stuff like that to explore that option. What about you? You got any marketing tips?
I would just echo what you said. You know, coming to conferences like this are really valuable because not only are you getting eyeballs for your game, you're also, if the game is playable, then people can play it for you and get that free play testing that we were talking about earlier. So you can find bugs for free, basically.
Do you guys set up surveys or anything for player testing, that kind of thing?
So I don't recommend player testing like, oh, let me find this. You're just going to find general stuff and general feedback. The first thing you're going to find is how are they going to incorporate multiplayer. It doesn't matter what game you've made. They want to know how you're going to do multiplayer, which is funny because most multiplayer game, like couch co-op games, don't actually sell that well. So that's a whole thing. Yeah. Which one? So you know what the smallest one is? Of sales, like the small is platformers. Yeah, puzzle platformers, like tiny. Like if you're gonna go there, go to a console if you're gonna do that. I don't care. I'm still working on my platformer for stuff. I have like those plans, but yeah. So also marketing your game on Steam, it's also different. you can look at what the most search tags are in like most wish list games and kind of get an idea of like what games people on Steam are actually wanting to play. And then you'll kind of get an idea of like, realistically, it's like simulation games are what people want to play on Steam. So games that people would play on Xbox are completely different than the games people want to play on Nintendo. So you kind of have to know what your platform for Steam is. And then you also kind of shouldn't care about it because the more places you release your game, the more income you can get, which means you can make another game. I feel like am I running out of time? Like I feel like I just keep going.
I think you got time. Yeah, we got like 20 minutes.
Any more questions? Are you guys good? All right, well, I'll say thank you for listening to the talk and all that, and
Yes,
thank you to the online audience out there. And so, we'll kick it over to you guys. Passed out all the keys.
Yeah, well, two.
You could totally give it to the host, you know?
We'd like to give one last thank you to Dave and Elliot for the Steam keys and also for their awesome talk. Thank you guys.